Hello and welcome to Getting Candid with me, your girl Helen. You're joining me from the Outback Hill, and obviously my good looks, my beautiful dress, shoes and jewelry, all that from Dark Beauty by Sonica. So today, guys, I'm chatting with a controversial pastor, perceived to be controversial by most of you. Is he really controversial? We'll find out on the show today. I'm talking about Pastor Jimmy K, who is also the host of the Real Talk Show. I have so many questions, just like you guys. So join me on the other side as I chat with him, and remember to invite your friends to subscribe so that they don't miss out on these beautiful conversations that we have on this show. Alrighty, welcome back. I mentioned that I'll be chatting with Pastor Jimmy K. Hi.
Helen, how are you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
I haven't been on this show for a very long time. So I was wondering, I was like, Nichitika? How was it Nichitika?
Muchitika every day.
So I was beginning to doubt myself. I was like, what's going on?
No, I think
so
we
when I
last
saw
sat
the
down
phone
with-
call, I was like, okay, fine, I've made it.
We last sat down some 4 years ago, I
Yeah,
think.
that was a long time ago.
That's a long time.
But also, coincidentally, I think we did the interview in almost in the same location.
Exactly.
Yes.
When you mentioned, that's when I actually realized that,
Yeah.
it was actually close by.
Close
right
by,
here.
yeah.
Yeah, but you've been all right?
I've been good.
Here's the question that I want to start with. I've never seen you in a jean or t-shirt. Do you get to be...
Now, look, to be quite honest with you, I
Yeah.
never did. I find jeans very uncomfortable. But now, since I've become very, very active, I go to the gym. I've adopted a very hectic fitness lifestyle now. So if you don't find me in suits, you find me in sportswear, tracksuits, sneakers.
But
So I
that's-
usually do that like on Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. Monday, I'm back on my suits, man. I love my suits.
And a lot of guys will say, oh, suits are uncomfortable, the tie, and you are saying jeans are
Ni
uncomfortable.
overall. If you believe in overall.
Okay, I'll tell you what. When you say, but the suits look good, they really look good. I was just thinking, like, can I manage? Because I love my jeans,
Yeah.
but I don't know.
But sometimes I also maybe just a t-shirt and the smart trousers.
It has to be smart
It
casual.
has to be smart. I love looking good.
Yeah.
I love looking good. I think looking good is good manners. It's
Yeah.
just good manners.
Yeah, it does. It is.
Yeah. Mamuna funga che.
Awaba.
I want to get proper. Yeah.
Okay. Also, Pastor Jimmy K, Real Talk has been doing so well.
Yeah.
It's been doing so well. It's been a lot to talk about.
Yeah.
A lot. I've got so many questions for you because whenever I see like even a promo running, I'm like, Pastor Jimmy K, he's a pastor. Anyway, I'm gonna ask him myself the questions that I feel like asking, the question that I feel like people want to know.
Yeah.
So firstly, how did you come up with the idea of Real Talk?
Well, Real Talk, this is, I'm sure people have never heard this. Real Talk is probably, the concept of Real Talk is as old, it goes back to about 20 years ago. Yeah. When I was at Christian Voice, I used to present a show called New Generation. And in that New Generation, we had a 30-minute segment called Real Talk. All right? So it ran on Christian Voice. Then after that, I left Christian Voice. Then I did my first TV show called The Z Gospel Show. It showed on African Magic. I remember the person that produced that show was Mandiva and Tommy, MT Productions. And within that TV show also, there was a segment called Real Talk.
Okay.
Then I transitioned to Hot FM. When I started Hot FM, I only had one slot. I would do the Sunday breakfast show. Then later on, I pitched the idea to then Kalumba. He was our, he had a position. Yeah, so I pitched him. I was like, look, there's this concept of a show that I've had for a very long time, but only now that I want it to be 2 hours. So I explained to him, and Hot FM being the kind of a working environment that it is where, they allow creativity. They say,
Yeah.
do it. So that's how I started. So about 11 years ago on Hot FM, I started the show as a radio show. Started building the brand. At some point, it now evolved to like the way the Breakfast Club is, where you're in studio, you're doing the show, but it's being captured for TV. That aired on Zambezi Magic for one season. Then beginning of this year, I was like, no, I think this concept still has some life in it. So we sat down with the Kazadi team, with my management, We said, look, okay, so here's a concept. How different can we do it? Said, okay, look, now let's now begin to bring people, because usually on radio, people send in their situation via SMS and sometimes would call. Why not look for people that have got these real life impacting stories and bring them in the studio so that they can explain these stories on themselves? And David Kazadi, being a brilliant mind that he is, that's how it started. But of course, what brought about it coming back, of course, was the birth of Zizo Plus.
Zizo Plus.
Yeah.
Okay. So before I even get, because I'm really thinking about, do you have pastor friends, right? What do they say about your show? Because you talk like when somebody doesn't know that, oh, that's a pastor. they'll probably think, oh, this is just somebody who is very open-minded and they can just say anything. But
those that really, really know me, and those that have known me for a very long time, number one, they understand my heart. So they don't judge certain things that I say, taking away from my heart for God and my Christian faith. They know that Jimmy is this, he's a pastor, but also he's a crazy individual. And I think for the longest of time, the world or society has, in a way, boxed certain careers. So there's a way that a pastor must look. There's a way that a pastor must talk. But to be quite honest with you, these same pastors who we have boxed, when they're not on the pulpit, when the cameras are not there, they're just regular people that, are subjected to the same emotions, subjected to the same feelings. Pastors get angry. Pastors get happy. Some pastors, they chill. Some pastors also have non-believers friends.
You have a church?
Come again?
You have a church?
Yes, I run a church, Kingdom Life Chapel.
I'm sure the people from your church, has it ever maybe occurred, like maybe in the elder, but come back, no, but Busa, that
well, certain things have gotten me into trouble.
Yeah?
Yeah, certain things have gotten me into trouble. They've raised concerns. But ultimately, look, I live a very unapologetic life. For me, I'm a very, very strong-willed person. One of the things that I've done at my age, I'm not going to disclose my age, is that, for the longest of time, I lived for people's opinions, and so you always care about what are people going to say, what are people going to. Right now, look, I weigh everything that I do with my conscience with God. If God doesn't have a problem with it, I really don't care about what people say.
Is there a time where you felt like, okay, I really went overboard there?
With certain questions?
Yeah.
What I usually do when I'm on that show, I substitute myself. So I would bring an ordinary person. I would think of an ordinary person. What is the kind of question would they want me to ask Hellen? So it's no longer about me. It's about, what is that one crazy question that somebody might want to find out about Hellen? And if it comes to my mind, I'll ask it. Because I know that there's probably somebody that is like, he just asked my question. Yeah.
So I'm thinking, because as a pastor, like you said, you're boxed, eh?
Yeah.
So every time people say when you're a pastor or you're a gospel artist, whatever you do, you represent God. Whatever you say, when you're walking, we want to see God,
Yeah.
So when you're doing, what's the goal? The show, what's the goal for that show?
That show has got, I think, a lot of aspects to it. Number one, those are impacting stories. So you find that, there's certain people that are going through secret battles, certain things that they're struggling with. And to hear somebody share a story, the way people are very candid and they are very, very unfiltered, it relates with their situations, all right? But also, this, the life that we live in, it's a very unfiltered life, unfortunately. But I think it's just, the pretense. There's a lot of pretense. And unfortunately, one of the things that I've actually come to learn about church, I've been in church from 1996. One of the things that I've come to learn about church is that church is very fake. A lot of things that we find in church are fake.
Like what?
The way people carry themselves. Number one, the way people pray, the way people carry themselves at church. Look, it's very possible that a lot of people that come to church, what they are and what they portray at church, they're two different things. And that's the reason why I think if God must minister to you at your point of need, he doesn't want you to wear a mask. He doesn't want you to wear a mask. He wants you to come as you are. Not stay as you are, because again, that's the problem. Because a lot of people that, they do certain things and say, no, God says come as you are. Yes, come as you are, but do not stay as you are. Because once you encounter God, God will begin to transform you from the inside out. So for me, to be very honest with you, even in some of the things that I address in church, I want to address the fake that is in church. A lot of people wear masks, So, for example, if Hellen had a drinking problem, okay, they're struggling because drinking is a problem. It's like any other addiction. So what will happen is that I'll find you at the pub, and if I'm your pastor, what you do is that you hide there. I wasn't know I'm a pastor. But when you come to church, you portray a picture that you don't even drink. But what is wrong with you showing me as your doctor, as a person that, administers spiritual help? What is wrong with you showing me to say, Pastor, in India problem, so that when you come to church, I can be able to address you and be able to advise you on how you can overcome the drinking addiction. The same way when you go to the hospital, when the doctor asks you what is the problem, nanga chipute chipamatako. Doctor, doctor, problem ili uku. If you tell the doctor that the problem ni mumala, wazakupasa tabe panado na fragile. But that fragile is not going to heal chipute chipamatako. So what is my point? My point is that the kind of relationship that we must have with God is a relationship of vulnerability. God must know you for who you are. Yeah. When you come to church, present what you are, so that it's very easy for pastors to help you what you are, because a lot of times we are actually treating different people. Over the weekend, makuma, but on Sunday, you're giving us an impression that you don't even drink. Yeah. So for me, I feel those are some of the things that I believe that as a church, there's a lot of fake stuff that we must address in church.
Okay, so because I'm thinking when because I saw, especially when you posted the promo where the young lady was talking about how she has so many sugar daddy blessers that fund her. I think a lot of people were, from the comments I was seeing, a lot of people were like, but why are you bringing her? You're actually encouraging other people from doing that. Yeah. So me, I'm thinking, okay, so if you're a pastor and you bring this girl, she's talking about it, she's shared a story, what next? What next is Pastor Jimmy K going to do for this young lady?
What next is not dependent on me. It's the Holy Spirit that convicts.
Okay.
And as long as somebody has not been convicted of their sins, it's very difficult for them to change. What they'll begin to do is that they'll begin to resent you, because, and as a church, this is what we have done. We probably have maybe family members who are struggling with certain things or who are living certain lifestyles that we do not approve as believers. So all you do is you cast judgment on them. All you do is, talk about the wrong things that they do. For me, I believe that such people, they need to, number one, realize that they're people just like you and me. It's just that, they're struggling with different things. But secondly, they must never feel any ounce of judgment from a person like himself. But do you offer help? Yeah, of course. Of course. Because the only help that you can offer to a person that is living that kind of a lifestyle, have a conversation with them. Get to learn what are some of the things that have caused you to live this kind of lifestyle. And you'll be amazed that there are a lot of people that are living the kind of lifestyle that young girl is living. But only that they are not on camera. And now because you're not on camera, you feel you have the right to judge the person who is living the same lifestyle that you're living. But also, this is the hypocrisy that I was talking about. Look, do you know that if that was a man that was seated there talking about how that he's got maybe 3 girls, the kind of judgment could have been different. Obviously. It could have been somehow accepted to say because he's a man, it's okay. But the hypocrisy is because it is a girl, and that's the reason why people are reacting the way they're reacting. So if a man can have 3, 4, 5 girlfriends, what is wrong with a woman doing the same? So me bringing her on the show, it doesn't mean that I'm condoning her lifestyle. So for example, if you're dating a married man, what is the motive of you dating a married man? It's probably to get money from him. And the time that married man is with his family, Uzambo Chitacha as a single woman. you probably have other men.
Find entertainment.
Yeah, there'll be other men that will be filling in for the time that married man, because a married man, it's what he's able to get from you. So she's that kind of woman that has decided to, and you'll be amazed to know the reasons why that woman decided to leave that kind of lifestyle.
Okay.
It was because of a man. If you've watched the full episode, it was because of a man. She was dating a man who pretended that was a single guy, and she had invested her hope in that particular man.
Oh, okay.
Then only discovered that he had a family, and after this woman, angensamonjala na meno, and this woman just vowed to say,
So
look,
she's broken.
she's broken, and she said, look, for me, I don't want to do marriage. For me, this will be my lifestyle.
Did you try to talk to her? And because I'm thinking, okay, that's a lifestyle, she's chosen it, I'm not judging.
Yeah.
But did you try to talk to her and say, maybe, because I feel like after you say that, there's a wound inside. Do
Yeah.
you get help? So when you see you're talking to people that are broken inside, do you offer help?
Yeah, look, there is only so much that a pastor can do.
Yeah.
The rest you leave it to the Holy Spirit, because so many other times as a church, we want to talk too much about the wrongs that people are doing. Address the wrongs, allow the Holy Spirit to convict. It's only when somebody has been convicted of their wrong that transformation comes. Without conviction, people will actually start running away from you, because as long as you're talking about, ukaleke mowa iwe, ukaleke uhule, ukaleke chan, as long as that person has not been convicted by the Holy Spirit, the more you talk about it, they'll begin to resent you, because that's all you talk about. But for me, I feel such kind of people, once you know that that is the kind of lifestyle that they've decided to live, as a church, what do? Do you resent them? Number one, you must understand to say, look, there's a reason why this person is doing what they're doing. But secondly, what kind of help? Advise them to go for therapy, advise them to go for counseling. And this is one of the things that I advocate for so many of my guests that have come on the show. And I actually have a guest that I've actually paid for therapy for.
Okay.
Yeah, because their issue was so deep, I actually had to pay for the therapy. Say, look, and I think that's the other thing about the church. Hey, it's not everything that you subject to deliverance.
Yeah.
When a brother or sister has a problem in church, no, they need deliverance. No, sometimes even just counseling and therapy will take care of that problem. But si vonse ma demons, si vonse. But we want to treat everything like pakache muntu aluke. Yeah, sometimes therapy. Take them to therapy, recommend a counselor that will be able to sit down with them to be able to help them navigate through the issues that they're going through. So for me, I believe as a church, there's so much that we can do to help society. A church must be a refuge, a place where people must run to when they've got issues. Unfortunately, it is not like that. It is a masquerade party. Every time that people meet on Sunday, it's a masquerade party. People are wearing masks and they don't present their real self.
Throughout the conversation, I can hear you not so happy about how the church can be so judgmental. And obviously our society is also like that. But I remember, I think the last interview I did with you, there was a time you condemned gospel artists that collaborated with secular artists.
Yes.
Don't you think it's the same thing? Like, look, I like how Makitu sings.
Yeah.
I'm a gospel artist, and I just want to have his art in my music.
Yeah. Life is very progressive. I was a Saul then. And if you remember Saul as a character in the Bible, this is a person that persecuted believers, killed believers. I killed a lot of believers. I was that kind of a person. I was very harsh on my fellow brothers and sisters. Mm-hmm. But with time, I've seen how that God has been gracious to me. And I believe that the same grace that God has extended to me, it's the same grace that I must extend to another person who I feel they are not living the same life that I'm living, or maybe a person who is struggling with things that I am not struggling with. Look, every day that we're living on this earth, we're struggling with different things. What I'm struggling with might not be what you're struggling with.
Yeah. And
the day that I find that you're struggling with something, I must be able to extend the same grace that God has extended to me. So, yes, I did that, and I'm man enough to say there's been a lot of progression. in my understanding of God's love, of God's grace, but also for me, I've chosen to love people for just who they are.
Yes.
I've just chosen to love people because I've seen how that so many times I've made mistakes in my Christian walk that extends to over 20 years. But God has been gracious to me. So why should I be harsh on people who I feel I don't agree with certain things that they're doing? Because I believe that maybe as they are walking with God, one day they'll come to realize that, there's just certain things sometimes as a believer you grow out of. There are certain things that you do because you're a child. The Apostle Paul says, when I was a child, I did things as a child. But now that I have grown, I've left my childish. And sometimes people must be allowed to be childish in their Christian walk. The same way that, they'll learn certain lessons, they'll make their mistakes, and they'll recover from them. You know what I'm trying to say? It's like you and I are parents. I know you've got babies. I've got babies as well. When a child is growing up, it is the mistakes that we tolerate and allow them to go through that builds their character and what they become eventually. Now imagine mwana akachiri iwe leka hivyo. Sometimes lekachi agwire pa muliro amvere muliro apye kona eve. They'll learn better. So for me, I was very harsh. I didn't allow people to make mistakes, and I think it was a reflection of the stage of my Christian walk, and I think all of us, we've gone through the Pharisees stage, where you're very judgmental, where you feel like you're God's mouthpiece to give judgment and punishment to whoever it is. Yeah. But no, tinachoka mumuni just
I really like your response because you didn't try to be defensive at all.
Muntu wanga ijeve tinachoka tikakupeza kuba tizakuposha and will not even judge you, but eventually we'll be able to have a conversation, say, okay, look, what is the problem? Are you having issues with alcohol? Okay, how can this be resolved? Can it be resolved by prayer, or can it be resolved by therapy? Can it be resolved by what is it that needs to be done? Yeah. Let's have that conversation with people. It must not be nampeza kuba because what will happen is that the next time that person will run away from me. And as believers, people must not run away from us. They must run to us, and we must be able to give them a platform, a very non-judgmental platform. People must be free to be vulnerable. People must be free to be who they are. That is the best way that we can help them as believers.
Okay. Yeah. What is the toughest situation you've ever been in your life?
Toughest?
Yeah. Okay, just one that you can say, okay, Paja, it was... where sometimes situations can be tough, you start questioning God. Are you there?
But you know what? If there's one thing that I've never done, it's question God.
Really?
I've never questioned God.
Wow.
Because look, God is sovereign. God does not require permission from us for him to do anything. If he wants to take my life, I must. If he takes the life of my mother, I can't question him. I'm not the one that created my mother. You know what I'm trying to say? So I've never questioned God, but I believe that everything that God allowed me to go through, there was a purpose. And sometimes as believers, when we go through certain things, we might not understand the bigger picture, because God always has a bigger picture. And sometimes because of the pain that you're going through, you might not see the bigger picture. You might be very fixated on the pain and why has this happened to me? But God always looks out for the bigger picture. So I'll give you an example. In 2014, I lost a lot of money in my business. Okay. I lost a lot of money in my business. I was depressed for about 3 years. I only recovered, I think, in 2017.
Wow.
It was a very, very difficult patch for me. I lost the hunger to hustle as a man. And that began to affect my marriage as well, because the responsibility of a man in a home, whether you're depressed, muntu wanga, madam afunika cha hadi. You know what I'm trying to say? Bills have to be paid. Whether you're going through a depression, things have to be. We were affected in so many ways. I remember being evicted from one house to another because we couldn't pay our rentals. And I remember there was Now, I remember there was this time we didn't pay rentals. So we are knocking off from work, only to find that the landlord has locked the house. Yeah. We had to enter our house through the window.
Lusaka landlords are like that.
Yeah, no, they're
though.
crazy.
Like,
They're crazy. No, they're crazy. But those are some of the moments that I look back to. I'm like, look, I learned my lessons. And of course, every time that I went through whatever it is, whether it was a difficult situation, I've always taken responsibility. There's so many times that when people are going through what they're going through, they want to blame circumstances to other people. Maybe it was what? No, take responsibility.
How did you get up and say, you know what, I need to move from this depression? I need to...
It was very difficult. It was very difficult. I remember I could not sleep. And that's one of the things that depression does. In the night, I'll just be playing video games. In the morning, my wife is going for work. I'll drop at the office. I'll come back. I'll sleep. When she knocks off, it was a very crazy time. But I remember one of the things that happened was I'd lost a lot of things. Like even just like personal properties. I'd lost cars. I didn't have like a very, very solid source of livelihood. I remember there was this day. It was on a Saturday evening. I was driving to office. I didn't have internet at home. I couldn't afford internet. So I went to do my research at the office. So as I was driving to the office, I found a group of ladies just outside like a restaurant. So they stopped me. In taxi. And I used to drive like a car that looked like a taxi. So I was like, I said, no, our driver didn't come to pick us up. And me knowing our boss, that guy has been fired. Are you able to take us? So I made 2 trips. There were about 12 of them. So 6, did 2 trips, I was paid. Then the supervisor on the last trip says, look, are you able to come tomorrow? Come and talk to our boss. If you can be giving us lifts every night. So now, imagine you find me in a suit during the day. In the night, I was a taxi driver for about 6 months. That is how I managed to raise capital to buy an air ticket. I went back to the basics. Flew to Turkey, went and ordered a few things there, clothes, a few things, started selling. And that is how I bounced back. I got my groove back. I got my hunger to hustle to where we are, where now God has restored us, 10 times, 20 times what we were in 2014. So for me, after about 3 years of battling with depression, 3 years of not being able to, to fend for myself and my family, I realized that there were certain things that I didn't do very well. And that's the reason why there was a time that I wrote an article on social media and a lot of people reacted. Hey! I said, if you're broke, don't marry.
Yes, I actually want to hear that because I saw it.
It was from that experience.
Yeah.
If you're a man that is planning to get married and you don't have a proper financial plan, don't marry. Yes, I had one source of income then, and once that source of income was terminated, it brought a lot of issues on my family. Look, it's not easy for any woman to live with a man that cannot provide. And submission in mavuta, and I know that a lot of people say, no, you must submit regardless. No, these creatures here, they submit to somebody who they look up to. Any woman who is feeding a man, and you're a man, you're making it very difficult for that woman to submit to you. She might be a good woman.
We're helpers, like the Bible says.
Yes, you're supposed to complement and supplement.
Exactly.
That is the role of a woman. So the main cake must come from a man. But if you're putting a weaker vessel, a person who's supposed to supplement your effort, you're putting them in a position where they must now start feeding you, then on top of all that, you're putting the heavy burden of, no, submit to me. Ay makosa. So look, make it very easy for your woman to submit. Be the man.
So broke is relative. I think maybe that's where people didn't understand.
Broke is broke.
People were saying, no, that's, for some people, what you call broke. For some people, they have a lot of money at that time. So that's why I'm saying, like, broke is relative. Yeah. Some people will be getting 1,000 a month and they're thinking, I'm safe. I'm going
Musaka, 1,000 safe.
I
don't broke. Musaka, you're getting 1,000. You think
for
you're
some
safe?
People, that's what they. So for some people, I think that's why the argument was like some people are saying, what do you mean broke?
So now look, in the context of my post, being broke is not having a constant, source of income, where like you don't even know where your rentals are going to come from. Yeah, broke. Yeah, broke man. If you don't know where ndrama za formula za mwana unapasa mwana wewe ni mimba, you don't even know how you're going to buy that formula. You're broke and you don't have any business in doing that. Leave that woman alone. Leave her alone. Not until as a man you get your act together, and of course I'm not talking about millions, and I think a lot of people misunderstood. They thought
That's
maybe
what-
I'm talking about millions. No, Muntwanga, just the basic things that a man must be able to take care of. Take care of your rentals, roof on top of your head, food must not be a problem, transportation must not be a problem, clothes for your woman, if you're taking care of a woman, it must not be a problem. Not because every time akakupemba something, no, I'm waiting for something.
They have heard.
So the basics a man must be able to take care of, even before you plan to get somebody's daughter.
Yeah.
You must be able to afford the basics. There must be a bed somewhere. There must be a quota that you comfortably can pay for, my rentals. I'm not talking about millions, But if you cannot afford any of those things, you are broke and you don't have any business to taking another child's daughter into poverty like that. Don't do it.
Okay.
No, without it, so.
My precious.
Landlord wapa Lusaka no pressure.
No, Lusaka landlords. I
No,
grew up in
it's
Kafio, and it's only in Lusaka that I started hearing landlord. This I'm like, oh, Lusaka landlords don't play.
Yeah, but all that really built my character. And for me, look, if there's one thing that I'm scared of is poverty.
Yeah.
Poverty is full now.
Yeah.
I don't want to go back there. No.
Okay. So when you after talking about that, and you've actually answered what I wanted to talk about, the brokenness.
Yeah.
But you talked about losing money in a business. Just recently, I read an article
Yeah.
where you were swindled. How's
Yeah.
that going? Did you get your money back?
No, of course not. And
how much was it?
300,000.
How are you swindled? So, like, how are you swindled?
Well, since this, I don't know when this episode is gonna be aired. This case is still very active in court.
Okay.
But one of the things that I'll tell you is that it's not my first rodeo. It's not my first time. I've been doing business for a very long time. I've actually lost bigger money than that. I remember I lost about $50,000 in a business transaction some time back.
Yeah.
Yeah, so $50,000 is about how much now? It's like half of a million, somewhere there. So that is just like one of the times that I've lost money. I've lost a lot of money in business. It's part of doing business. You win some, you lose some. And look, there's nobody that is successful that will tell you that they've never been swindled. There's so many people that I've interacted with who are very successful. They've always misjudged the business transaction and they've lost money. But for me, really, I don't look at how much I lost. I look at how much I gained. Because now imagine if maybe I didn't go through that situation and I didn't learn from that situation, I could have lost more later on in life. So for me, God allowed it to happen so that my business acumen, my business senses will be very alert the time that I'll be signing maybe $100 million contract. So for me, I don't even look at it as a loss. I look at it as a lesson. And this happened in 2022, right? In 2021, somewhere in June, that's when it happened. Okay. And between then and by the time that the court case started, we had already recovered. So it's part of doing business. Look, life itself is a risk, and if you must succeed, you must always be a person that is not scared to take risks. And I'm that kind of a person. I am not scared of taking risks. Doing Real Talk was a risk. I knew that people were going to talk, but I've done it.
Yeah,
I've done it. So for me, I'm that kind of person. I always love to challenge myself, and I love to take risks. And because I went through what I went through, I'm not stopping business. I'm actually doing big investments this year. So it's not holding me back. There are a lot of people that probably could have been swindled. The idea is just to learn from your experience. Because if you don't learn, you become bitter. That's the thing. You become bitter. You harbor a lot of, no, hey, me, why me? If not you, then who? Yeah.
Okay, let me take you back a little bit. You work for Christian Voice, and you mentioned Real Talk right now. So I'm thinking, were you as controversial as... Were you as controversial as you are now?
Well, a lot of people perceive it to be controversial, but for me, I've always been a person that does things that are outside what society has has defined to say, look, this is what this person is supposed to be. So I've always gone against, against the tides. So even at Christian Voice, there are a lot of times that I would actually get into trouble for doing things that at that particular point, they were new. You know what I'm trying to say? Like, there were certain things that I did back then that were very new, and I would get in trouble. But when I look back now and I listen to Christian Voice, I'm like, look, I paid the price for these
Like
kids.
what?
So I remember, may he so rest in peace. I had a station manager then, a Gibbs member, a wonderful man that really I attribute my growth in radio to. He was my station manager then. So Christian Voice back in the days, from the 90s to the early 20s, the kind of music that they would play, usually it was just like mellow music. So me being hype, being young, and also coming from, I identified a need. I was like, look, what would make young people to want to listen to Christian Voice? Because it's like a radio station for boring old people. So if a person like myself must listen to this station, what should I do? So the presentation style, it was very different. And they'll say, you're sounding like a DJ. You're not a presenter. That was a problem. But the music itself, like I would bring in very unorthodox rap music, that music that they've never heard of. And sometimes, we had playlists. And from a playlist, I was like, when Adonai, I always had a way to infuse my music. And that was a problem. I had memos, I was put on suspension.
Yeah.
But when I look back, I'm like, look, that's the kind of a person that I am.
Yeah.
I'm a trendsetter, but also when you listen to Christian Voice now, it's a little bit liberal, it's very open, they play rap music, but there's somebody that had to pay the price. Myself, I remember Lombe Machilika, Panji, Chipeta, we were the black sheep, of the station, but it paid off, really. It paid off. The radio station was received by a lot of young people, and we got a lot of young people engaging into the radio stations. So I'm that kind of a person, really.
Okay.
Yeah, so not controversial, really, but that's Pastor Jimmy.
When were you ordained as a pastor?
It's been how many years now? About 11 years.
Really? That's like 2008?
Yeah.
20 what?
Yeah.
2009, I think.
Yeah. So I was a music pastor then.
Okay.
And of course I went to Bible school. Then right after Bible school, started the ministry. Yeah.
How did you know this is my calling?
To be very honest with you, everybody that has worked for Christian Voice, I think Christian Voice was like a place where God just would, in a way, ordain people to work there. And I remember in 1996 when I gave my life to the Lord, God gave me a vision, a very clear vision of where I was going to work, the path of my life. It was a very elaborate vision. It was at that time that I actually had the feeling. And that feeling, of course, was confirmed as I grew as a believer to say, this is the way that God wanted me to lead my life. But again, even just how the kind of a pastor that I was going to become, I was very, very deliberate to find out what kind of a pastor. For me, this is what God has ordained me. I'm this kind of a pastor. If you're going to think I'm going to be like your pastor, I'm sorry. I'm Pastor Jimmy K, and there's nobody like Pastor Jimmy K. But also for me, I believe, to the calling, to the clergy, to the pastoral ministry, there are a lot of people that have put it in a box, but also they don't expect pastors to have a life outside the pulpit. You know what I'm trying to say? They don't expect pastors to look a certain way, dress a certain way, talk a certain way, drive certain cars, live in certain areas. And for me, I'm not that kind of a pastor, really. I'm just here to live the best life that Pastor Jimmy K can live.
Okay.
A very unapologetic life.
Okay, I think we have to end the interview right here. What next, though, for Real Talk?
Well, Real Talk has been doing very well on Zizo Plus, so we're waiting for it to run its course on Zizo Plus. There are other platforms where it's going to right now. It's a little bit early for me to preempt, but just know that Real Talk will be on other platforms. But also, there's more that is coming from myself in terms of content creation. Because I know that there are a lot of ways that me as a preach of a gospel. I can still impact people besides just the pulpit. So I always look out for what other avenues that we can use to reach out people. If people can hear about Pastor Jimmy K, they can hear about God in anything that I say or do. That is enough. Yeah, that is enough.
Thank you.
I'm grateful for this opportunity. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for making time.
Right.
Alrighty, guys, you've heard it. This has been a great conversation. He's made me laugh a lot, learned a lot from him as well. I hope you have learned something as well, and you've known a little more about what Real Talk is all about, because a lot of people had a lot of questions, and mostly questioning why a pastor, why is a pastor doing something like this, but he's explained. I think he's quite clear. So from me, your girl Hellen, and the entire crew, it's bye-bye. Keep subscribing to the channel.